What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Tactical Swede here. As promised in the last video, we have yet another Glock modification today, and as you can probably tell by the trigger gauge here, we're going to be doing a trigger. We're going to be installing the ZEV Technologies Fulcrum trigger today. A lot of the anti-Glockers, as I call them, they like to make fun of Glock's logo or their motto, Glock Perfection. And it's funny because a lot of the things they complain about, I don't really find an issue with. They'll say they're ugly, which is really a subjective thing. I honestly think they look fine. A lot of people will complain about the finger grooves. While I don't necessarily love them, it's not something that really bothers me. The grip itself, the texture, I don't have a problem with it. One area where I do agree with a lot of people is the trigger. It's not the best trigger in the world, and if you're doing a lot of shooting, it actually can bother your finger after a while. It's not the heaviest trigger I've ever shot, but I mean it's a good 6 pounds or so stock out of the box. But just the shape of it, the kind of serrated edges in there, it can dig into your finger after a little while. So today we're going to be installing something a little nicer, a little better, and definitely lighter. So let's get into the install of the ZEV Technologies Fulcrum trigger. Alright, so included in this kit, there are two separate kits that they sell. One comes with a modified striker assembly, as well as the trigger and all the stuff that's included in this one. I opted not to go that way. I'm going to keep the stock striker in there. But you get your trigger assembly, which has this nice upgraded aluminum trigger. Nice flat, it's curved, but it has a nice flat face on it, so you don't have those nasty serrations that you have on the stock trigger. It just feels really nice, lets you get a good finger on that trigger. The actual trigger safety itself is wider, so you don't have that thin blade sticking into your finger. Really nice design. I like it. Plus, I'm a big black and red guy, so that little red accent is awesome in my opinion. It'll also comes with two very small Allen screws, or Allen wrenches, and that is for adjusting. This trigger is adjustable for pre-travel and over-travel. I'm going to leave it as is for now and see how it feels. I might do some adjusting on it later on, but for now we're going to keep it as is. It comes with a new firing pin safety and spring. And then it also gives you an option of one of two springs, either a 2-pound or a 3-pound spring for the striker. I'm going to opt to go with the 3-pound spring because I've heard some people say that with the 2-pound spring they have encountered some light primer strikes, so rather than take the chance on that, I'm going to go with the 3-pound spring. So for the install, what we're going to need, obviously our trigger and our parts here, our gun, and we're going to need a punch just to do the disassembly on the gun. And I'm going to do some trigger gauge measurements of the before and after to see the difference. Alright, let's get in. Alright, so we're going to test out the pull of the stock Glock trigger here. And we get 6 pounds, 5.9 ounces. 6 pounds, 14.5 ounces. And 6 pounds, 8.7 ounces. So right in that 6 to 6.5 pound range is what I'm getting out of the stock trigger here. And we'll revisit that once we get the new trigger in and see what we've saved. Alright, so let's disassemble. And I'm going to start with the slide and change out that striker spring. Now, I'm not talking all the way through this because I do have another video on complete disassembly of the Glock, so I'm not going step by step with this. If you need to know a little bit more information about disassembling a Glock, I'll put a little link to that video here, and you can go review that. What I will cover, because I didn't cover that in this video, is actually how to take this spring off. One of the best ways to do this is to actually use the slide itself. Take the striker, stick it in there, and then give it a turn so it sits there on the top of the slide. And then we're just going to pull down on this spring, and these little plastic cups come off of there. Pull them out, and that will allow the spring to come off. We're going to take our new spring that came with the trigger and try and put this on there. Push it down. Get one side of that cup in. And there we go. Put the cups back on, holds the spring on. Now, as I was saying earlier, the ultimate kit that they sell comes with a new striker, and it's got holes milled out in it to, I guess, to save weight. Again, like I said, I've heard people with the lighter striker and lighter striker springs having some issues with light primer strikes. So I opted to go this way and keep it mostly stock. Just changing out this spring. Alright, so now that we have this safety, firing pin safety out, we'll put this new firing pin safety in. And this one's basically just a nice polished up version. It's got a little bit more bevel on it. As you can see there, the top of that is a little bit more beveled. It's nicely polished. So we put our spring in there. Drop the spring. And there we go. Now, take our extractor, put it in there, push down on the safety pin, and it will lock in there, and lock the safety pin in as well. Striker's back all the way in. Put our extractor depressor in there. And put the cover plate back on, Push down on that. And our slide's back together again. And you can test out the firing pin safety here. As you can see, not moving forward. We push it on the safety pin here, and firing pin is allowed to move forward. So anytime I mess with any of the internals here, I always test that out just to make sure it's put back together correctly. So we'll set that aside for now, and then we'll work on the trigger itself. Alright, so again, the review on this, you got your 3 pins, locking block pin, trigger pin, and the trigger housing pin here. Just always start with the locking block pin, push that through. Trigger pin, push on that and wiggle the slide release lever, and that should pop out of there. It's being difficult. Apologies. This pin is being difficult, so I'm having to work off a frame here. There she goes. Alright. Pull our locking block out. And trigger housing pin. And the whole trigger assembly now should pull right out. There we go. Old trigger. New trigger. Now, as you can tell by looking at these, this new trigger is nice and highly polished, very smooth. That's going to help with the trigger pull. Yeah, and then, as I said, the actual face of the trigger itself, much nicer. Nice flat face there. No serrations there to dig into you. The trigger safety blade, a lot wider. Again, not going to dig into your finger as you're shooting. Alright, let's get this installed and put back together. Alright, so drop it in. Put the trigger housing pin back in. Sometimes with this, take your punch and just kind of run it through there, make sure everything's nice and lined up. There we go. Apologize if I'm moving off a frame here. Sometimes I got to bring it in a little closer to my body to get some leverage. Alright, so put our locking block back in. And now, as I said in the disassembly video, I always put the locking block pin in first, for the main reason that the slide release lever has this spring on it, and if you put this in first and put the trigger pin in, when you try to put the locking block pin in, this wire spring is standing in the middle of that hole, and then you got to try and press it down. So I find it easier to just put the locking block pin in first, then slide this down underneath it and into place, and then we put our trigger pin in. And there she goes, slides back into place. I'm sorry again for taking it out of frame, but there we go. All our pins are back in place. I'm just going to push them in a little bit more just to make sure it's in place. Alright, there we go. Now again, just as a recap, So we changed our striker spring, we changed the firing pin safety plunger there, and we've changed our trigger assembly. Reassemble everything and give her a test. Alright. Nice. Good crisp reset, I like that. I can definitely tell that the trigger pull is lighter. Love the feel of that flat face on the trigger. Those serrations kind of get annoying after a while. Like I said, it's the one thing about the stock Glock that I do not like. I was willing to deal with it for a while, but that's the one thing that annoyed me enough to want to change it. So yeah, I'm liking this a lot better. You can definitely feel it's a lighter pull. Alright, so let's put the gauge on it and see. As you remember, with the stock trigger, we were pulling right around 6.5 pounds. So let's see what we get with the new trigger. There's 3 pounds, 13.6 ounces. 3 pounds, 13 ounces. 3 pounds, 13.8 ounces. So right around just under 4 pounds is where we're pulling right now. So that's definitely taken a lot off of the trigger, but it's still enough that it takes a concerted pull of that trigger to get it to fire. You know, if you're a competition shooter and you really want that nice hair trigger, that's fine. But for again, this is my everyday carry self-defense pistol. For something like that, you don't really want something that's too light, because as cops will tell you, anybody that's been in a situation where they needed to use a gun, when your adrenaline's pumping in a situation like that, you can pull that trigger a little bit more than you want to, and you know, maybe you're gonna pull the trigger and then something changes and you want to let off. Well, if you have too light a trigger, you don't have that option because it's gonna fire as soon as you pull it. So I like to have a little bit of pull still, but definitely a lighter, smoother pull with this trigger than the stock one. So yeah, I'm liking it. We are gonna take this out to the range next weekend, and we're gonna give it a good test run. Both the new trigger, the ZEV Technologies Fulcrum trigger, as well as the new Meprolite FT Bullseye sights. We're going to give them both a good test run, put a lot of rounds down range, and see how they work. I'm loving the way this sits right now. I'm probably not really going to do anything else to this gun. I really like the way it sits right now. As I said, the trigger was my really only gripe for this gun was that trigger. Everything else does not bother me enough to want to do anything about it. I really don't have complaints. You know, everybody knows I like Glock, but yeah, this honestly sits perfect for me right now. So probably not going to see me do a whole lot more with this, but I do have some other guns laying around that we might do some modification to. If it's something you guys are interested in, let me know. Maybe we can do something. I did just get a new gun for Christmas, as I said in the last video, a nice SIG P320. So we might do some stuff with that. We'll see. That's all I got for today, guys. Let me know what you think. You like the trigger? Man, I love it. I love the way it looks. I love that red accent there. I'm a big black and red guy. I love it. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Hit me up. Please hit that subscribe button up there and stay up to date with all the new videos coming out. I do have more stuff in the works now that the holidays are over, and I promise we'll get some more stuff rolling out. So, until next time, guys, live life and have fun out there.